And that is what I want for you as a founder. I want you to be able to, frankly, control your narrative. When you just tell your story without structure, you're telling it like you would tell your best friend, people don't know what they're supposed to take out of it. So tell them what to take out of it. Hi, I'm Kaitlyn. Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking about story versus structure and why you actually need both as a founder. In my work as a brand and marketing strategist, I have found that most entrepreneurs don't actually have a story problem, they have a structure problem. By the time you start a business, you have lived a lot of life. You've done a lot of work, and you know you care deeply about what you're trying to sell and share with others. But every time you try to tell your story, it's too long, it's too messy, it's too generic, and sometimes it comes out like a trauma dump. There's no question that the raw material is there. What's usually missing is a clear way to shape it into a narrative people can feel, trust, and connect with. In this video, we'll cover what your story actually is versus the structure that you should communicate it with. I have a fanboy on me, so if you see a bit of Beyonce wind action, that's what that is. To start off, let's cover what a story is versus what a structured story is. So your story just has a general basis. These are going to be your lived experiences, your values, the decisions that you've made, and the path that has brought you to where you are now. The structure is how you organize and share those pieces of information to someone who has never heard it before, so that they can follow exactly what the storyline is, feel the emotions and everything that they're supposed to feel from that story, take action if that is the goal, if you want them to buy from you, if you want them to connect with you, if you want them to follow you, and remember the story with hopes that they then are able to articulate it to someone else. I want you to bring a story to the forefront of your mind. And as you think about that story, maybe the last time that you've told that story, did you start it off with, where do I even start? Or are you saying, my story changes every time I tell it? Another issue that you may be having is people like my vibe, but I can't repeat what I do. That is how you know you have a story, as I'm sure you do, but it doesn't have structure. When there's no structure, you start to question your story itself. But what you actually need is a better container. When I say strategic storytelling, it's just your story told in a way that makes sense to the people that you're here to help. When you tell your story strategically, there are 3 things that people get from your story. 1, people understand you faster. 2, your story feels consistent and it feels trustworthy. And then 3 is connection. People see themselves in your story and not just as someone who has achieved all of these things. They see a real human. As an example, I'll show you how this looks in real brands that you recognize and also what this looks like for some of my clients. The first brand that has mastered strategic storytelling is Nike. So when you hear about Nike, when you look at their advertisements, when you go on their website, they're not just showing you these timelines. They're like, this is what happened in the 90s, this is what happened in the 2000s. They are actually sharing human stories, and they are showing these people as more than athletes. So they're not just like these Olympic level athletes. They're not just these people that have gotten to where they are now by not having trials and tribulations. They are real humans, and they want to show you their real struggle, their resilience, and the possibility that if you follow this story and you listen to the story, you are able to then create for yourself. So they want you to feel very inspired. The structure that I have found that Nike uses for their own stories is character. So they first show you, okay, this is who the character of the story is. This is the main hero. And then also the tension. So then what do they have to overcome to get to where they are now? The turning point. So this is the moment where everything changed. And then the momentum that was created from that. So now they're able to become this Olympic level athlete, or they're able to become a professional athlete. It's not that you're really searching for perfection. It's just that people want to know those honest moments before the big win, because that is what people most connect with. Another great one is Airbnb. Instead of Airbnb just being this company kind of like a hotel, Airbnb has made their host the heart of the brand. So your version should center on the people that make up your business and those community stories. What that would look like for you is having those client transformations, having those behind the scenes with your team, those stories from your customers that have shown their transformation and what it was like working with you. Another brand that I'm sure we all know and love, unless you're like a Samsung user, is Apple. Apple has repeated the same message for decades, and that is that technology should feel intuitive and empowering. The lesson that we can learn from them is that when you say the same thing over and over again, that builds recognition and that builds trust. So when you think of technology that is simple enough to use, phones, computers, software that is simple enough to use, you think of Apple. So as you are thinking of your stories and as you are thinking of your core values and the action that you want people to take from your stories, it doesn't have to change each quarter. It needs to be consistent and people need to recognize it so that they can trust it. I had one client who was actually a podcaster, and her whole job was around telling her story and connecting with people that were going through the same things that she had conquered. She needed help telling her core stories in a way that people would connect with her, and how she had been doing it herself was not very strategic. She was just telling her stories, and when you tell your story in a non-structured way, people don't know what they're supposed to get out of it. It's kind of like when you don't have a call to action on your website. People don't know what they're supposed to do or get out of you just throwing information at them, whether it's on a web page, whether it's in person, whether they're reading your about page. People want to know what to do with the information that you just gave them. So when we did take the raw information of her stories, the things that she had gone through, her accomplishments, people were then able to say, oh, I see myself in her, because that is the whole point of creating that container around your story. People are supposed to connect with you, and if you get really, really good at telling your story to people, they are then able to tell your story for you. I'm sure there are a lot of stories for athletes or for celebrities or speakers that you follow that you have listened to and you were able to tell their story for them. You could probably write an article on their story because they have structured their story in a way that enables you to do that. For example, at the beginning of this video, I made a joke about Beyonce Wind. I'm only able to make that joke because we all kind of understand the story, or at least enough of us do. You may not, but enough of us do that are watching this video that we understand what that reference means. And that is because someone has come out and done something consistently enough that we can now say that and claim that story as our own. When you start to look at the other founders around you, whether they're founders of companies, speakers, other celebrities, you are probably able to tell the stories of certain founders. For example, I mentioned Apple. Steve Jobs, a lot of us know his story, and it's because his story has been crafted and structured in a way that makes it easy for others to remember it, take action on it. Maybe that is buying the computers, buying the technology, but also for others to tell his story on his behalf. So he doesn't have to be the one to tell his story. Apple does not have to be the one to tell his story. I really want you to take into consideration how your story will land for the end user, for the people that are hearing that story. And that is what I want for you as a founder. I want you to be able to, frankly, control your narrative. When you just tell your story without structure, you're telling it like you would tell your best friend, people don't know what they're supposed to take out of it. So tell them what to take out of it. Going back to the woman that I was working with, it wasn't about inventing new stories. She had amazing stories. All we needed to do was structure it in a way that we understood what people should walk away feeling and understanding about her when they heard this story. When I do personal branding with clients, one of the things that we frequently work on is the structure of their stories, which we will run through together on this video. So I want you to get a pen and paper, or even just like record yourself speaking. Tell your story as you normally would, whether that is structured or non-structured. Just tell it as you normally would. And then once you have that raw information, we're going to structure this into PSP, path, shift, and then practice. So the past is where you started, what you were doing, and what wasn't working. The shift is the moment or the season that made you question the old way and choose to do something differently. And then practice focuses on the now. So how those lessons that you learned shape the way that you show up today. I want you to take that raw information and sort them into this chronological order. What this does is it tells people very clearly the path that you walked and how those experiences now inform the way that you work today. And it also lets them know that it's still evolving and your audience wants to grow with you. So strategic storytelling, what it's meant to do, is meant to bring everything into focus so that people can finally see the way that you work and see your product and see your service the way that you see it. And I want to take this weight off of your shoulders that the only way you can tell your story is that if you're at the end goal. You don't have to be at the end goal. People want to grow with you. People want to just see where you were just last night, where you were a week ago. And if there is something that you learned, whether it was a mentality switch, whether it was a schedule change, people just want to learn as quickly as possible with you. That is where the connection actually happens. One thing that I really wanted to start doing on my YouTube videos that I do with my clients is I really help them with their mindset, especially as it pertains to running a business. As an entrepreneur, founder, business owner, whatever you identify as, it is not always what you are doing, but it's a lot of what's happening here. It's kind of like a plant. What you put in is what you get out. So in order for you to tell your story better online or in person, I want you to make this shift. And this is especially going to be for people that are showing up online. And if you take nothing away from this video, I want you to make this mindset shift that you are not a content creator. So as you are telling your story online, you're not just a content creator. You're not showing up on whatever platform you want just to talk and sell yourself. When you are selling yourself, what you get are other companies reaching out to you to ask if you can push their products and their services. They're going to ask you to be the face and tell their story. But if a company were to reach out to you and say, hey, could you be the face of our brand? Could you promote this product for us? I bet you would probably be a little irritated because that's not what you actually want to be known for. So the mindset shift that I would recommend you make is that you are a founder that just happens to make content. Because in reality, all you're doing is telling a story. And in theory, anyone could tell that story. For example, Michael Jordan, he has the Jordan shoes. The Jordan shoes are still being sold, but when you see the advertisements for them now, a lot of times it's not Michael Jordan on the advertisement. It's someone else. It's another athlete. And they are telling the story. Now, when the shoes first came out, and probably up until a couple years ago, it was Michael Jordan telling the story. He just happened to be telling the story. He just so happened to be the face of the brand. But now you have other athletes that are telling the same story, but it's not necessarily their story. And that's what I want you to embody as a founder. Even though this is your business, your LLC, you are working on something much bigger than you. You're not selling yourself. You're selling a product that maybe you just happen to invent, or you are the manufacturer of if you are making it yourself. But in theory, you could hire someone else to probably be the face of the brand and to tell that story. So when you are showing up and telling your story, yes, you want people to connect with you, but they should also know that something needs to happen. There's an exchange that needs to happen. They need to go to your website, they need to connect with you, they need to buy from you, and you need to tell your story in a way that other companies recognize you as a fellow company, not as an influencer. So when you treat yourself as a founder that just happens to make content as part of a bigger funnel, you start to show up in a way, you start to tell your story in a way that people know what they're supposed to get out of it. This is a mindset shift that I have made over the past couple of months, and it has helped the way that I show up for clients. And so now as I am coaching them on what they should do, what kind of content they should produce, it is no longer UGC style, it is no longer influencer style, because if another company were to come in and say, hey, we love your content so much, we want you to blah, 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 we've done something wrong. Something has gone wrong because they are no longer seeing you as a fellow founder. And so now you need to tell your story in a way and show up as a founder, as an entrepreneur, and show up as a business so that people know, okay, I'm meant to buy this product. And consumers are smarter than you think. You can watch a video from an influencer that is just telling their story and they're just talking to talk, and then the person who is going to probably pitch you at the end of this story. You can 100% tell the difference. And if you could tell the difference, your customers can tell the difference. So that's the change that I really want you to make. So once you have structured your story, where does it go? It goes on your about page. It goes on videos. It goes when you are introducing yourself on a video. It goes into podcast interviews, whether you're leading the podcast or you're a guest. It goes into launch messaging. It explains why this offer exists and why now. And it also helps you in person when you are networking, or if you're just talking and people ask you, what do you do? You're able to answer it in a way that people think, maybe I should keep her in the back of my head so that I can work with her in the future. You're able to answer it in a more succinct way. So you don't have to tell your whole story every time. You can pull pieces from your path, your shift, and your practice depending on the moment, but the structure underneath stays the same. If you are a founder and you've been wanting to tell your story in a better way so that it connects with your ideal customers, you can reach out to me at resonatestudio.com. I will leave it linked down below in the description box. If you liked this video, please like, share it with someone that you think could benefit from it, and subscribe for more content like this. I'll see you next time.